Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the Zoom community gathering. We have our fire chief of the city of Richmond, Chief Osorio, with us to tell us about the local responsibility area map that were recently published. And Chief Osorio, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Evening, everybody. My name is Aaron Osorio. I'm the fire chief for the city of Richmond. Um, Vana asked me to attend tonight just to kind of talk about what the city is doing with these maps, um, what the plan is, how to access information. Um, and I also, for us, we were looking for opportunities to reach out to different sectors of the community that have an interest in this. So I can go over the timeline and kind of what the state has done, um, discuss the postcard mailer that many of you received or should have received. That was a way of us encouraging folks to dive deeper into this topic by going to our website. So I'll cover a number of items. Happy to answer questions as best as I can. In the end of the day, this is kind of a um, state item that has been pushed down to the local jurisdictions. So although we have a deep understanding about the topic, there are aspects of it that are actually even we have questions about. So, full disclosure, but I'll do my best to answer all the questions that you might have and then point you in a direction if you would like to leave some written public comment that we will submit back to the state when this is said and done. So, but thanks for attending and giving me a few minutes of your time this evening. So I can go over really how this started, um, the history of where we got to this point with the maps. So the maps that are out right now, these are proposed maps to update the severity zones throughout the state. This severity zone mapping requirement actually goes back to even right before the Oakland Hills fire, the tunnel fire. There's significant fire in the Malibu area, and that was the beginning of the state requiring state fire or CAL FIRE and local jurisdictions adopting maps that showed severity zones for wildfire behavior. So the first LRA maps, which is the local responsibility area maps, and you'll see the terms LRA and SRA. LRA is local responsibility area. SRA is state responsibility area. All this signifies is whether or not a local fire department is responsible for fire protection there, or if it's under the jurisdiction of CAL FIRE and the state fire department. And so this main topic for us is about specific to the LRA maps, which is just the city of Richmond Fire Department's jurisdiction, which in our case mimics the city of Richmond city boundaries. For fire districts such as Confire, it would be their entire jurisdiction that they cover, that they respond and provide fire protection to. So in 2009, the first maps were adopted at the LRA level. That was the first time those had been done that way. At that time, local jurisdictions had the option to add to the maps as they saw fit with no real requirements or justification why they did it, purely based on institutional knowledge, historical fire knowledge, perceived threat of wildfire risk, things like that. So then we fast forward to now. The law regarding maps changed, where now the law requires the state to identify different levels of risk or hazard in the maps. So we went from either you're very high severity or you were not. Now the new proposed maps have moderate, high, and very high, three different classifications of the type of zone that you would fall under. And the state maps, the SRA maps, were adopted by the state earlier this year and released to us just for our knowledge. And then the rollout this year was supposed to happen in January for the local maps. But as we all know, the major wildfires that took place in Palisades and down south, they were delayed. And so they did a phased out of the first quarter of 2025. So we get to where we're at now. On February 24th, we were in the second phase of rollout that Contra Costa County was, along with a number of other counties. We received our maps officially from the state, and we started on the clock. So now the rules are for every local jurisdiction in an entire state, from the day you get the maps, within 30 days of that time, that date, they must be posted and available for the public to view and to comment. Within 120 days of getting the maps, we must have the council or the governing body of your jurisdiction adopt those maps. And any changes, which is you can't take away, but you can add, but there are specific criteria to add. And then 30 days after they're adopted, we must submit everything we did regarding this entire topic, public comment, and submit it back to the Board of Forestry and the Office of the State Fire Marshal. And then they will go into effect 30 days after that as the officially adopted maps. So right now, where we're at in this phase is in the review and public comment phase, with in the background, the prepping to take to council phase already started. Our goal is to take the maps to council on the May 27th meeting. There could be some wiggle room in that, but that's our target date. Because this is an adoption, basically of an ordinance, or we're adopting these maps. It requires 2 readings, so it would be on back-to-back council meetings. First meeting would be the presentation with the recommended action to adopt. The second council meeting that they would be at would be on consent and wouldn't have to have a discussion over it. So that's where we're at in that process right now. We've had some. We've been trying to advertise as much as we can as a department. We pushed it out on social media. We pushed it out on a lot of our different platforms. We put it on the city manager's report. If you get those, we've asked the city manager to in her report to council every council meeting. We've also created a website, and we felt that this was mimicked what most organizations are doing. It was a much more organized and streamlined way to be able to gather public comment, because there's a kind of collection point there that we can then send when we have to send our packet in. And there's a lot of information. Some people have a lot of knowledge about it. Some people, it's very new. And it was gonna be very hard to try to get all that information across without creating a website that people actually go through and look at. This isn't a topic you can just kind of briefly peruse and look at and, okay, I get it, and move on. It's actually kind of a complex issue, and especially if it's something that you have never really been aware of before, I'm sure it creates a lot of questions. So what we did is created a website, and that website was modeled a lot after the state website and the Wildfire website, and that was for a couple of reasons. One was we liked the format, and another was with the city of Richmond, we have a lot of pockets of unincorporated county within, I won't say within our jurisdiction, but we have a lot of pockets of unincorporated county that just cross over. One side of the street's Richmond, another side of the street's Contra Costa County. As a fire department, we respond to both because we do closest unit with the county. So we knew that there's gonna be individuals who might be in the county area or vice versa. We kind of wanted to be able them to go to either the county website or ours, and it looks somewhat familiar, and they can navigate it the same and get the information they needed. And then Fire had a lot of resources on their page, but I found them kind of hard to get to in the beginning, even as somebody who goes to that page a lot, when it was specific to just the maps. So we wanted to consolidate it all in a place where basically a one-stop shop for everybody. We weren't required to do this, but we send out these mailers, they're postcards. and we follow the model that we do for our defensible space inspection mailers, where you have a QR code, because there's so much information regarding this topic. You could have we'd be mailing out a brochure basically. So we wanted people just like, hey, what's this? Let me scan this code or go to this website, and then it would pop up the information that we wanted them to look at. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. So you guys see this? This is a copy of the mailer that you may have received.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the mailer. One side should have had your address or the APN number or both. And one side had this QR code and the website and contact information. And then if you went to that site, it would have brought you to the city's webpage. So this is actually the page right before that. I just wanted to show that if you logged on to the city's webpage, this is our main fire department portion of the webpage for the city of Richmond. There was a tile right on the front that you could also access the same exact information. Did it switch pages to you? Is it to the map page now? Or is it still on the first page?
No, we see the map icons.
The map icons? Okay. So the QR code should have brought you to this page when you first scanned it, which is directly to the link, the platform for the maps. And this page, this entire page here was dedicated to just the LRA maps and the information. What I wanted to point out is each of these tiles, especially this first one, the fact sheet, has really good information if you're trying to understand how we got to where we are today, just statewide when it comes to maps and why they exist, and describes the differences between the state areas and the local areas, and a timeline of how all of these different laws have come into place and why and what they mean. The second pile, it was the rollout plan. There was a phased rollout, so the entire state didn't receive their maps at the same time. They were staggered, so everybody's on a different time frame. The third tile, that's called the CAL FIRE, the Fire Hazard Severity Zone Viewer. This is the state version of being able to look up your address specifically. So you could go into this page here. It shows the entire state. You can come up into, hit the search icon, 728 Devil's Drop, or 726 Devil's Drop. What was the address? I'll just pull one up, 728.
It's 727 actually.
Oh, 727. You'll see it brings up, kind of starts defaulting them. Yeah. And it will bring down to your parcel. There are some areas you can kind of make them darker or lighter so they can be more transparent. But the purpose of this map was more to show you your specific address, or if you have the APN number, say it's a piece of property without a home, you'll know exactly if you're falling in there, which zone. So the red means you're in the very high, the highest risk zone. Sorry here, I'm gonna try to, so we get back to the main page. That's one tool that you can use. There's also some information there that the state provided about insurance. But then we get to the tools that we have made from the city of Richmond's GIS person. And these we thought would be a little bit more visually easy to compare, because a lot of the questions we were getting was, well, what's the difference in the maps? And so if you click on the first map icon, the goal on this one was that you would have the roller function, where if you went the roller here left, you're in the current maps. And if you drug the roller to the right, you can see the new proposed zones over here. And this one, you can move it around and zoom in. Um, it goes pretty much down to, you can see the houses underneath. And so you can go back and forth and check. I had a parcel count, acreage count comparison. This is more so everybody can kind of just see the differences and the changes to the map. Um, Part of what the new maps or the zones, um, what they are doing is, um, everywhere that was designated high, very high in the model the state did, had to have a staggered decreasing level of hazard surrounding it. So the old maps just showed a very high. And then what was unrealistic about that is, just because you're not in the red, you cross the street, doesn't mean the fire just stopped there. There's no realistic fire behavior that stops at a zone like that. And so this was to portray the descending level of hazard in these maps. The maps were developed. There's a lot of modeling and inputs, things such as ember cast from air, vegetation, what they call fuel modeling. So it went down to, was it trees? Was it light flashy fuels? Things of that nature. There was topography was a factor in the maps. Localized fire behavior was a factor in the maps and the frequency of that. So there was a lot of different factors that went into the maps. I will say I have some questions about some of the boundaries too. So I'm not going to tell you was a perfect science. Some of it's kind of hard for me to understand, but the factors putting into the modeling made sense. These are the same factors we consider when we having to determine fire operations in large wildfires. What is one of the hardest factors, and there is no really good science for this now, is that we're talking about fires that burn from the wildland, start as possibly a predominantly vegetation fire, and then burn into neighborhoods. They burn into what they call the urban interface, where wildland and houses are interfacing. And those first few blocks of homes that are impacted, that's part of the wildfire. Those are the impacts of the wildfire hitting those homes. But once you start getting like what you saw in Southern California earlier this year, your transition at a certain point from a wildfire to what's basically a urban conflagration. It's homes burning, creating embers in other homes, and it's no longer the wildland that's creating this fire. It's the houses on fire burning other houses on fire. And there's no good modeling right now for when you get to where it's only houses burning and it's spreading from house to house, because there's so many factors that come into that. Besides the construction features of a house, there's things that are different from every home. Maybe you have 2 or 3 cars parked in your driveway and your neighbor has all their cars parked in the garage and there's no vehicles to catch fire. Maybe the housekeeping around homes is completely different. There's a lot of factors that come into besides building construction, which is a main factor, such as the type of siding, the type of roofing, the type of decks, what type of storage around there, those things. But you also have these other factors that are very specific to each individual home and how people choose to live. So there's a point where this modeling starts to lose its effectiveness because you get deeper into residential areas. So
Um,
this,
I'm sorry, Chief, for clarity. Could you explain that this is just the boundary of the city of Richmond, and a lot of the area that doesn't show red actually is red but unincorporated?
okay, yeah. Oh, this is a good example of when I said that every very high zone is supposed to be staggered away with high and moderate. And then this one obviously shows just high, right? Well, that's because where it turns into high and moderate, it's actually outside the city limits. So this map only reflects city of Richmond city limits or jurisdiction. And that's what these dotted lines indicate. Up here in more in the District 4 area is the example where you see, because all of it falls in the city limits, you'll see it go from very high to the orange high to the yellow moderate. But if you looked at a statewide map, all the zones have that type of staggered or stair-stepped approach applied to them. Let me get out of this one. Sorry. A lot of bouncing back and forth. Um, and then the last tile, bottom right, where it says the City of Richmond parcel lookup, that was very similar to the CAL FIRE viewer, but it was made specific for residents within the City of Richmond to be able to look up their parcel. We had to make this anyways because this is how we got the flyers to you. And this is how we're pulling some demographics of who's impacted. Because what we were looking to find and determine when we work on all this was how many parcels are in each zone, how many parcels are public, how many are private, how many people are impacted. And we had to have this layer put in a GIS system to be able to determine those factors. So we knew we pull this out to the community because we were using it for our uses, but it was a way for the community to look up their own address, and it should copy what's the CAL FIRE viewer. And just in case you were curious about that same info, this is the info we pulled out of the GIS system. There's a total of 2,869 parcels impacted by the new maps. 1661 are in the very high, 584 in the high, and 624 in the moderate. And then we broke down public, City of Richmond, and private. So public would be East Bay Parks, East Bay Mud, there's PG&E, water districts, different things like that. And then those are separate from the ones that are city-owned parcels that fall into the zone too. And then we determined that there's 684 parcels where the zones, there's more than one zone in one parcel. So you may live on a piece of property where a portion is in the very high, a portion of the parcel is in high. And so we wanted to know how many people fell in that area. The state's going to change the maps or update the maps over the next few years to not have what they call split parcels anymore. It will most likely be boundaries for these zones based on for lines of convenience, such as streets or topographical features, things like that. But as it stands right now, we do unfortunately have some houses where half the house is red, half the house is orange. So in those instances, the parcels will be held to the standards of the highest parcel within the highest zone within their parcel. These drop downs here were a lot of the basic questions we were getting initially. I think one of the ones that's very good, I like to have people recommend they go look, is on the second drop down. How did the state determine these maps? This video that CAL FIRE provided gives a pretty concise account of how they got to this point, the modeling, and what it means to be in each zone, what are the requirements for each zone. So I recommend, if you have the time, it's a pretty short video, that you take a look at it, because I think it will help explain a lot of how they got to this point at the state level. And at the very bottom, this is the place where you can enter for public comment. And it'll be recorded, but it's not only recorded. Every time someone sends an email here, it gets sent. A copy gets sent to me. A copy gets sent to the fire marshal for Richmond, and a copy gets sent to one of our admin staff to log it to keep it as part of our packet to turn into the state. I'm gonna stop sharing here for right now. I know it's a lot of information all at once. I feel like I've been talking too much, and I want to see if there's any questions. I see some stuff in the chat here. Maybe I should open that up. Sorry.
Chief, there's a question about ramifications or implications of each zone. So if they're in very high or moderate, what does it mean for them in practical, for practical purposes?
Okay. Let me take a snapshot of this. This was actually out of that video I just showed you. I can't find the regular graphic that the state provided, but this is the one. This is the same graphic. It's just in the video. Let me share this and I'll show it while we talk about it. Okay. So this one right here breaks down to two categories. All right. So SRA and LRA, we're really only concerned about the LRA. As you can see, it's actually a lot less requirements for the LRA on the lower zones. But if you're in very, these are requirements not only for jurisdiction, but then also for property owners on some of these. So we have to adopt the zones. The CEQA is going to be more for like vegetation management projects, the process you have to go through. Some of these are for new divisions, things like subdivisions that are in a very high that are brand new, can't have one means of egress, right? There's some requirements for new construction, new subdivisions, new housing divisions. Chapter 7, requirement 7A, that's going to be the requirements if you are going to build or renovate your home. Those are the non-flammable construction requirements. Things like you can't have flammable siding. You can't have shake roofs. You have to have certain types of windows that are tempered. So there's some construction requirements. Those are usually for new buildings or if you do certain types of renovations on your existing structure. There's the defensible space requirements, which currently is what we would call zone 1, which is the 30 feet out from your house, ladder fuels, grasses should be no more than 4 inches tall. The basic inspections that most of you are being inspected for every year currently, with the potential of that becoming a zone 0 level of requirement in 2026, which means nothing flammable within 5 feet of your home or connected to your home. The hazard disclosure is going to end up being one of those things when you sell your home and you have to have an inspection. I think they're called a AB 38 inspection, if I remember right. Might be wrong on that number, but I think it's an AB 38. So that's the most stringent of the zones. Beyond that, when you get into high, really held to is if you sell your house, the hazard disclosure, and any renovations or new construction in that area has to meet 7A compliance. And if you're in moderate, the homeowner has no responsibility. The city has to adopt moderate as a zone, but it doesn't come with any state mandated requirements. So I think, does that answer the question, Councilmember Bonner?
I think so. And
Okay.
where can we find this information that you have here? Or if you could send it to me and I'll share it with the community.
Yeah, I can get this to you. Like I said, on the website, that video has this exact same graphic on there too.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. Are there any questions for Chief Osorio?
Chat, I think
Yeah,
there was things too.
Robert, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have two questions. My main question is several of our members of our neighborhood have insurance through AAA or State Farm. And each of those policies come with a wildfire response endorsement, which means that the insurance company is telling us to vacate our home so a private contractor can come in and take care of our house, including spraying our entire house with fire resistant foam. It seems to me that those people, AAA and State Farm, have to know if Richmond Fire has got some plan to coordinate with the private contractor who's going to come and save our houses. Is there such a plan?
Uh, well, first of all, if we evacuate in an area, there no corporate fire brigade is allowed to come in and do the duties of the fire department. They are allowed to be on private property, and this is common for areas that have um, commercial assets. PG&E does this, for example, for their own property, but we haven't encountered that here. That's like city charter and things like that they're crossing lines that they're not supposed to. We are going to respond to the incident as our pre-plans designate, right? We have wildfire response matrix that we follow. We are going to expect them to evacuate if they're at your house and they are performing duties. We're going to expect that the evacuation orders would apply to them too. They're not a sworn staff and are not exempt from any types of orders and things like that that are issued by the police department. There isn't, I haven't heard of anybody doing that yet, to be honest with you. Those where I've seen that come into play is in, movie star homes in Southern California where they hire private fire brigades to stay on their property during the fire. I've seen that with, corporate fire departments that are, like I said, are protecting their own assets, power companies, PG&E, East Bay Mud. But I haven't seen that for like a residential tract, like kind of what we have in our city. That would be new. And they have not reached out to the fire department to even discuss how this would work with us.
I'm sorry, but
Okay,
I'm confused, Robert. Is that in case of a fire they would come and spray fire retardant foam, or they do it now?
no, the insurance company monitors for wildfires. When they get information that there is a wildfire approaching my home, they send in their contractor to my home and they do things like they remove brush, they close my doors and windows, they clean my gutters, they put in a temporary sprinkler system, and then they spray the whole house. And we have friends in Texas who have had this exact service, and the service saved their house. And it has nothing to do with evacuation. It's long before the evacuation is ordered. That way, I benefit in that my house doesn't burn down, and the insurance company benefits that they don't have to pay for a house that burns down. And it's and we know in our neighborhood that State Farm and AAA have both issued this endorsement to our policies. So I the only thing I was worried about is people stepping on other people's feet, and are losing the benefit of the service. And I think, Sohelia, as an owner of a property on Hillside Drive where I live, even though we're in the county, our first responder is Station 63 out of Richmond. And anytime any call comes out of Hillside Drive, Station 63 is right here. So I was curious to ask the chief if there was at least some way to make sure this works for everybody.
Well, I can't speak if Fire has been contacted since you technically reside in their jurisdiction, even though we are your first responders through auto aid agreements. I haven't heard of that. I think if they're willing to not you, if you sign it, I guess that's in your benefit. I wouldn't blame you for wanting to sign that. I think it's without having operational knowledge of how fire spread is and what phase of the fire they're going to actually be able to provide that service. There's a little bit of probably a false sense of security about what that's going to provide you. If we have a fire, let's talk about worst case scenario like happened in January this year. What they call particularly dangerous events or situation. That means I got winds 30, 40 miles an hour or greater. My relative humidity is in the single digits. It's 80, 90 degrees out. Type of fire that it's virtually impossible for us to stop. And it starts somewhere in the May Valley. They are not going to be at your house in time to save your house in that type of scenario. Now, if we have a fire that's starting out in Lafayette and is burning, and we know in the next operational period in 12 hours, we forecast this fire is going to start hitting the valley, hitting May Valley, hitting El Sobrante. That's when that type of service would probably be able to actually be applied, because you have some lead time before the fire front is going to get to you. So I think it's important to understand when they're actually going to be able to implement those measures. Fire happens, we get there within 4 minutes. 63 gets there within 4 minutes, starts an initial attack. We have a full alarm there within 8 minutes. We have mutual aid coming from CAL FIRE and aircraft there in 15 minutes. They're still trying to figure out where you live from wherever they're coming from, because there's no way they have fire stations strategically placed the way municipalities do. So I think it's important, just as long as you understand probably the type of service that this really means. It's not going to be an emergency response like you're going to get from the fire department.
So I should address my question to Fire and not to Richmond, who is my fire department?
You just told me that you live in a county address, correct?
Yeah, but some years ago, Supervisor Joy, as I understand it, got the agreement that our fire department is Station 63.
No, your first responders are Station 63 through an auto aid agreement because they're the closest station. But the jurisdiction having authority for your address is Fire. So there is boundaries, just like a city, but then so that we're not sacrificing the safety of community members, the agreement is that whoever's closer, regardless of the boundary, responds to your home for an emergency. But the authority having jurisdiction in where you live is Fire. So when you call 911, your call goes to Fire, and Fire alerts our crews to go. And that's how we respond. That's why you get the closest unit to your house, which is 63, but technically not in our jurisdiction. We just provide you services because we're closer. So any agreement that would have happened or any outreach that would have happened between these companies for a county address wouldn't have come to us because they don't recognize us as the authority over your property. Fire is that person, that entity.
So I guess would it be correct to summarize for me, there might be potential confusion, and I'm very lucky to have this endorsement, to have the private company come in and save my home?
There's no confusion who's coming to your house. And there's no confusion whose jurisdiction you're in. We are going to come on a normal day. The closest fire engine is going to come. For you, that is Richmond Fire Department. But we have no authority to enforce defensible space rules on your house. We have no authority to charge you inspections on your house because we're not the authority having jurisdiction over your home. I need you to try to separate who's going to show up to your house to help you, but who gets to dictate what you do and don't do. Those are two different agencies for you. And that's exactly why we have auto aid, because we didn't want the politics and the the lines in the street that say city or county to impact the safety and response of the community members. And so the fire departments agree who's going to go, whoever's closer is going to go. But all the other services that a fire department would provide, such as fire prevention, enforcement, and inspection, that is provided by the agency whose jurisdiction you actually reside in.
Okay, so just to let you know why we're worried about this, several years ago we had a fire on Hillside Drive, and all the fire trucks went to Hillcrest. So the fire trucks were driving around Hillcrest looking for the fire, which there was no fire, and the house on Hillside burned to the ground. So since then, we've been trying to make sure 63 is fully aware where Hillside is, and I think we have tried and done a very good job of that. So we've done all we can, and thanks for doing this talk. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Robert. Chief, there's a question about Zone 0 enforcement in very high fire hazard severity zone. If you could talk about it, please.
So, is it in the chat? How will defense
Yes.
base requirements for red zone be enforced? So currently, Zone 0 is not the rule by the state. It's recommended. It's the best chance that your structure will have of surviving a fire front, but it's not required. Zone 0, there's an executive order from the governor to implement Zone 0 in 2026. Zone 0 is very easy to apply in the more rural setting where you have a lot of space between structures and homes and parcels. It's going to be much more tricky to apply it in an urban setting like Richmond, El Sobrante, unincorporated county areas, primarily because of how close homes can be in a more urban setting. Zone 0, true compliance to Zone 0 means your fence, you can't have a flammable fence attached to your house within 5 feet. You're going to have wrought iron fences that actually attach to your house. If your lot lines are less than 5 feet apart from your neighbor, that means your entire fence needs to be changed from wood to wrought iron, right? You're not allowed to have flammable decks. You're not allowed to have any flammable pottery. You're not allowed to have pots under a window that are flammable that could propagate fire up to the window. You're not allowed to have certain trees within so many feet of your home with so much overhang over your house. It's extremely stringent requirements for Zone 0. And I think at the state level, they've realized it's going to be cost prohibitive for a lot of folks, depending on where you live. It's extremely easy to enforce for new developments that are being built to that standard. But if you take older developments, it's going to be really hard to get that enforced. And then the other aspect to this is going to be the inspection process to do that, because a lot of what's going to create the risk that needs to be changed is not, I can't see it from the street. It's going to be in the backyard. So I think there's going to be more information that comes out on how to apply Zone 0 to the LRA, and it might not exactly mirror the SRA Zone 0, but we'll probably have some workarounds to work in a more tightly, densely populated urban setting like us.
Thank you, Chief. There are questions about risk assessment at individual level. Would the fire department be able to advise them for fire prevention?
Yeah, so we've offered folks, and I think this program is going to probably evolve as time goes on. We do this. I mentioned them earlier. I think they're called AB 38 inspections, and when you sell your home, you're required to get this inspection done if you live in the wildland in the high severity zone. And at that point, an inspector from the fire department comes and says that they do the inspection. They basically do a defensible space inspection on your house up to the current standards, which is right now Zone 1. And before they'll sign off so you can sell the house, they'll say whether or not you passed or not. If you didn't pass, they'll tell you the things that you need to fix. Kind of like a pest inspection, I guess you would compare when you sell a home. And so those inspections are going to take priority over these, but we can apply the same standards in an informational setting, not in a penalty like citation type of setting. And those will be offered, but we don't want to confuse the two. So we wanted to call them, instead of an inspection, probably going to call it like a defensible space consultation or something we're going to have to come up with, which need to differentiate between the two, because one has to take priority over the other. The other item we're looking at doing is trying to follow a model that was done in Moraga Fire District, where there were volunteers in the community that were trained to basically coach people. They're taught the standards. They are assisted by the fire department in training and best practices and the resources available and handouts. And then they are available to members in the community, and they help the fire department conduct these assessments of your property and let you know the best practices to make your home a little bit more hardened and a little bit better chance of fire. So, but as it stands right now, if you email the fire department's the Fire at Richmond website, that comes to our admin department, and saying you're interested in getting an assessment of your home for wildfire preparedness, but that this is not an AB 38 inspection, we'll start getting through those. We've done a few already because we advertised this out to Greenbrier, and some of them have taken us up on that. So yeah, we can come and do that. I just we don't have a guaranteed turnaround time yet. I guess I want to make sure people know. I just want to manage everybody's expectations about. It might take us a few weeks to get out there and do yours, depending on how many other inspections we have on our calendar.
Chief, I just wanted to say that we at West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council have people trained to do that, and we're waiting for the fire department to approve their helping with this task that you just mentioned as volunteers. So I hope that we can coordinate that. There is a question about defensible space for a neighborhood. I would appreciate it if you could talk about home hardening and community hardening.
So the defensible space for a neighborhood, when I think of that, I'm thinking of when you coordinate as a community and either become a fire-wise community, or you organize like a fire safe council, similar to what West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council has done. The fire-wise communities are great because it only takes you only have to have 8 homes in a community, and they don't have to be 8 homes in a row, just 8 homes in a community that all come together, and you want to improve your fire preparedness. And so we have an inspector that is the person that this is actually a national program under the NFPA. So there's some online paperwork and registration. There's some assistance that our inspector provides in helping organize and sign off as, hey, this is an organized group that wants to do this. And then the group itself has to take the lead in some of the paperwork and application. And you have to identify projects in your neighborhood that you feel would improve the wildfire preparedness in your neighborhood. It comes with a very small amount of annual investment, whether it's hours of work, cutting down trees or brush on each of your parcels, measures you might have taken, maybe a community meeting about wildfire preparedness. Maybe you invite me or the fire marshal out to talk about it. But being organized in a group actually allows you to apply for grants and money from different organizations that can actually fund bigger projects. Like, hey, we want to have this, section of open space that the homeowners association owns. We want to have this, project there, or we want to do a chipper day, or we want to do, install ember resistant screens on events in the neighborhood. So there's a lot of money that programs and grants that open up to you when you organize as a fire-wise community. You get recognized nationally and in the registry, and led by the community. It can be as big or as small as you want, as long as you have that core 8 homes that are part of it. And that's also there's information on the CAL FIRE website on that. When people register, we send out a rep from the fire department. It's actually meant to be administered at the local level, and just help you get started with the process, and then check in with you as a group periodically, see what you need.
Thank you, Chief. We only have 8 more minutes and some more questions. So I'm just going to briefly answer one of them about native tree that the governor of California waived CEQA for defensible space. Send me an email and we can talk about that, Lynn. There are questions about illegal fireworks. You may want to talk about what's being done and the campaign. And also there's a question about public fundings for home hardening in very high fire hazard severity zone.
I'm just putting in the chat. That's the main fire, like the main email. If you want to request, I saw one of these questions about how do you request that assessment. So that's the one right there. I'm sorry, I'm trying. So fireworks and incentives, you said?
Incentives for home hardening.
So right now, the city, we don't have any incentives for home hardening. What we're looking into is trying to see if we can do something about that. There is a program in Berkeley that I meet regularly with the chief of Berkeley and we kind of exchange ideas. And we discussed the program that they just started. It's a $2,900 per home program that this comes to city general funds that are set aside. There are some criteria to qualify for that. For their program, it's if you're over 65, if you have a disability that impacts your mobility, or if you're on a fixed income that's below the median income in that area, you can qualify for up to $2,900 of funding to help do some home hardening. The $2,900 figure comes from a test that for the resident for $2,900 can do majority of a large amount of the home hardening for zone 0. Things like hardscaping, rock, pottery, changing pottery if you have pottery around there, buying ember resistant mesh for your vents, buying gutter guards so the leaves don't collect in your gutters. So it was like basic home hardening things that you can knock out with that money. So we're looking at seeing what that looks like for us, the city of Richmond. It would obviously have to be something that's approved by the city council. But I think it's at least opens the door to some sort of program. And then we are looking for, there's a grant we're going to be applying for, well, not the fire department, but the city's going to be applying for under Prop 4 and the California Conservancy for money that would help members in the community do home hardening there. So right now, that's what's in the works, but there currently isn't a program designed for providing money to harden your home in the city.
Thank you, Chief. And I just wanted to thank you for working hard on the issue of this home hardening incentive or assistance for residents in very high fire hazard severity zone. So I took an item to the city council and I asked the chief to support me, and the chief said, no, I need to have hard facts and data to support it exactly. And he's taking the time to work on the issue actually and find all the details so we can take the agenda item to the city council and get it approved for such assistance. I'm grateful for that. And Chief Osorio is also one of the partners in Stop Illegal Fireworks campaign. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah. So at the council meeting last night, it was one of the topics of discussion. We had already been working as the fire department, along with police and public works, as far as the campaign address the fireworks this coming season. I think it's important for people to understand there's different roles that happen in this issue. Fire department, a lot of people misunderstand the fire department cites people for fireworks. We do not. That's the police department's function. We don't cite people. We don't confiscate. We take possession of works that are confiscated by police. We coordinate that. There are certain type of citations we will do that have to do with uncovering like sales operations and things like that. But the average person on the street that's lighting off fireworks that gets reported, that's actually a citation given to the police department. But we're on a campaign. Every year we already do social media campaigns and we do some signage in the city along main thoroughfares. But what we this time are looking to do is increase the signage and then work with a group in the community that has also started a website in the campaign, and kind of join forces, utilize each other's signage and information, and just kind of get more of an awareness out there. It's a very hard issue to address. I don't want to deceive anybody, but it's the method in which people do these types of things make it hard to figure out who it is a lot of times. But it is a huge problem in the city. I'm all for upping the fines, and I think like we talked about last night, that's just one little component of trying to address it. Because ultimately what's hard is by the time we get a place where fireworks are being reported, because it's so busy during that time of year and that weekend, we don't know who's lighting it and you don't know who it is. Most of the time these fireworks are drug out to the middle of the street and lit off. Their only real solution is trying to cut off the supply that's coming in from out of state. That's really where this is all coming from, predominantly out of Nevada. There's a lot of the fireworks that come into the city that are illegal, that are really big, dangerous fireworks. So we're working on all of that. I wish there was a one easy answer to this, but it is pretty hard problem to address. But I think the fact that we have in the city's attorney's office, someone that's coming on through contract to prosecute these offenses, which is one of the missing pieces we haven't had in the city for a number of years now. That I think start to help and start to make people think twice, because there's actually someone here that's actually going to find me now, because there was no city prosecutor. There was no mechanism once the citation was written for it to be followed through. So, that's something that's going to be, we'll see how that, because I think that's going to have an impact a little bit in the issue. Is there anything else in the chat here?
Thank you very much, Chief.
I didn't touch on, and I'm hoping there's no questions, we get asked a lot about the maps and the impacts on insurance. I didn't see anybody put anything on there in the chat about that. So I don't know if that's really a question about from anybody, but these maps are not the same maps that the insurance industry uses. But what I like to tell folks is that they currently don't use these maps. They say that they have their own maps, and I know they do have their own maps. Those maps are risk maps. These are hazard maps. The difference is you can mitigate some of the risks, which the hazards, these are more permanent factors that impact fire spread. But I think it's very important to point out, in California, the insurance industry is being scrutinized. The methodologies they use to drop people, to increase rates, all that type of stuff is being scrutinized. And there is nothing in the law that says they will not be able to use these maps in the future. And so we don't know if they'll ever use these. They may never, or they might. We don't know. But I think it's important to understand right now, it shouldn't change the insurance industry's what they're doing. But I think at some point, one of the factors they look at, but not the only factor. I think they will continue to use their own risk maps predominantly. And there's a lot of other factors that this could be a whole nother conversation on its own about the FAIR plan and how they have to pay into that and how it's in their advantage to start dropping policies. But I think ultimately it's good for people to know that currently these are not the type of maps that they would use, but we don't know where they will be used in the future.
Thank you very much, Chief. I just wanted everybody to know that I put the link for a Stop Illegal Fireworks campaign that some residents have started. And we are collaborating, different city departments, fire, police, legal, public works. If you have any comments, please send me email or contact the website that is in there. And I wanted to bring to your attention and thank Chief Osorio for his leadership, because now we have an inspector for very high fire hazard severity zone. Noah Branlow is the WUI inspector who helped us start becoming firewise in our community, and we're working on that. And finally, don't forget about May 17th, where Chief Osorio will be there. We are very glad about the partnership between Richmond Fire Department, West Contra Costa Fire Safe Council to raise public awareness about wildfire safety. May is Wildfire Awareness Month. So come on, bring your family, bring your neighbors. It's important, and let's meet and greet and work
Station
more
63.
proactively.
Station 63 on Valley View, Robert, your favorite firehouse. He'll be
Yeah,
there.
our own neighborhood fire station, 63.
Everything will be wildfire centric at that event. It will be our first
Yeah.
ever wildfire preparedness open house. Our goal is to do it every year, and it will be focused solely on wildfire issues with people from different agencies that have some vested interest in wildfire, or property owners, insurance policyholder, United policyholders who give some information out about insurance issues. So we welcome everybody to come and check it out, check out the firehouse, and hopefully walk away with some more information.
And we have, yes, Robert, we do have free wildfire pizza. So it's 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Please join us. It's going to be fun. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, feel free to email fire department at the email address that the chief provided, and I'm going to include it in the recording that I sent to you. And also, yeah, feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email address here. If you're here because you read about it on Nextdoor and you want to join my community mailing list, please email me, soheilabano@gmail.com, and let's just stay in touch. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much, Chief. And yeah, see everyone soon.
Thank you.
17.
Thank you so much. Bye, Sohela. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Chief.
evening.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Chief.
night.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
Thank you. Night.
Right.